So here we are looking at the 2018 Burton Cartel, which kind of lives in between the response world of the Genesis X and the more responsive binding, the Cartel right here, and then the Genesis like kind of almost overlapping with the Cartel. The Genesis X is like clearly more responsive, but there's so much overlap between the Genesis X and the Cartel. And for 2018, there's not as much differences in terms of overall ride and feel that there was in 2017. And this is mainly why you get the Genesis and Genesis X style. There's, you know, different composites in here and such like that, but you get the same base plate that has a little more freedom for butterability. So, you know, when I was comparing this to the Genesis, the Cartel used to have a little more base plate on board, and it made it feel a little damp, a little more damp than, let's say, the Genesis and Genesis X, but and a little less butterable. It had a little less butterability, whatever you want to call it. But now it has the same dampness and the same butterability because it has that same base plate. So it's kind of bumped up in terms of butterability. You can see they've got these new straps that are just a shade smaller, just a shade smaller than the Genesis, and I really like these straps. I like the way they fit. I love these. I love this style of strap on this, the Genesis, and so many other bindings. I really love the Malavita strap, but I like the overall feel and flex of the high back, and the response of the Cartels a little better than the Malavita, and same with the Genesis. So basically it's just hammock strap this year, high back with the Genesis versus the Cartel. And then, you know, these toe straps used to just suck. They were around years ago, like 4 years ago or so, and they would often come loose. These look just like those, but they're not. We didn't have any of these come loose with our testing. The rubber's super sticky inside here, and so they kind of just took an old design that was kind of like caused some problems and tweaked it and fixed it. You also don't have the super smooth ratchets like you do with the Genesis and Genesis X. They have double-sided super smooth ratchets that can kind of go on with you know, one-handed, where these kind of need a little more guidance. But you know, so that's why you're paying a little less for the Cartel, but you still get a lot of great binding. You get auto cant, same great adjustability. The one big thing, you know, you hear this year over year, but the complaint with these is with EST, and there are some companies like Signal and Endeavor and a few others who are now making channel system boards. So these Reflex are great because they're compatible with everything. That's why I always get Reflex, and I always recommend Reflex because you never know what's going to happen. You could break your board halfway through the year and end up getting another board, couldn't get the board you wanted from Burton, blah, blah, blah. You end up getting a non-Burton board, and suddenly you're on these discs. You don't have to buy new bindings. You know that, but that's, and I really don't feel you trade that much difference in response. Yeah, there's a little more pop and snap with the EST because of that hinge tech, but that's about it, and it's not really a deal maker to go with the EST because you're also sacrificing a lot for that as well. The one problem though I don't like is the disc here does not turn sideways and slide with traditional inserts. So you can order one online, but you can see it's just like this except it's turned this way. So then you can't slide heel to toe on the board to center it, and you only have a little bit of adjustability. I usually ride with the discs. I call in and ask Burton for some extra discs, and I ride that way. So that way I can kind of micro adjust. It's not much. It's definitely nowhere near as much as, you know, a traditional disc with a bigger channel. But that's the sacrifice you make for such a great flex underfoot. And that's really what these, you can kind of, you can't really see here, but I can't really flex it enough. Like, I can feel it right now flexing, but I don't think you can see it, and I'm not super strong enough, but this whole area is made to bend in the middle, including the disc. And that's what makes reflex so great. It makes the feel of the board, it makes the board you're riding feel a little softer, feels more buttery, and it feels more twisty. The torsional flex is a little easier too, because you're not creating two dead spots in the board. The board just feels more alive from tip to tail, and that's a great thing. The only trade-off is a little bit of dampness, but then they make up for it with all this shock absorption and the gel cushioning and all that. So there you have it. That's the 2018 Burton Cartel. Some nice upgrades with a base plate similar to the Genesis. So, if it's going back and forth between Genesis, you can make those decisions based on what I told you. And if you want more response, you really have to suck it up. If you want a lot more response, you really have to suck it up and pay a lot more to get the Genesis X. There you have it.